Hey, welcome to The Explainer. You know, when you read a classic play, something like Romeo and Juliet, you pretty much assume that the words on the page are, well, the words the author wrote, right? But today, we're going to dig into a 400-year-old puzzle that might just make you rethink everything you thought you knew about the books you read.
Okay, so let's get into it. And we're going to start in a place we all know or think we know, Fair Verona, the setting for one of the most famous stories of all time, Shakespeare's Romeo and Juliet. Right from the very beginning, the prologue basically spells it all out. You've got two families, the Montagues and the Capulets, who just can't stand each other. And out of this feud come two young lovers who, from the get-go, are basically doomed by fate and family.
And the story is just this absolute whirlwind. They fall in love instantly, get married in secret, but then things go sideways. A duel, a banishment, a crazy plan with a sleeping potion that goes completely wrong, and it all ends in tragedy. The lovers take their own lives, and it's only then that their families finally make peace.
It's this perfect, heartbreaking tragedy. But here's the question, the one that changes everything. Are the words you read in your copy the exact words Shakespeare put on the page? I mean, most of us just figured there's one official version, right? You pick up a book and that's it. The final draft that Shakespeare himself signed off on. It makes perfect sense.
Except that's just not how it works. The reality is actually way more complicated and, honestly, way more interesting. For Shakespeare's plays, there is no single master copy. What we are reading today is actually the result of hundreds of years of choices made by editors.
Okay, check this out. Here's a perfect example from The Tempest. For a long time, in the popular versions from the 1800s, it's Prospero who says these really harsh lines to Caliban. But if you look at the earliest versions, and the ones scholars use today, those words were actually spoken by his daughter, Miranda.
So why did they change it? Well, it turns out the editors back then thought it was just too improper, too indecent for a young lady to talk like that. So they just changed it. They literally rewrote a piece of the play to fit their own ideas of how a woman should speak.
And this gets right to the heart of the puzzle for any modern editor of Shakespeare. How do you piece together a play when there's no final, definitive manuscript to work from?
You see, unlike a modern novelist who works on a book and then publishes that one final version, Shakespeare was a man of the theater. His plays were living documents, not static texts. So we don't have that single authoritative version. So what do editors have to work with? Well, they have sources like the quartos. You can think of these as the paperbacks of their day. Small, cheap little pamphlets with a single play in them. The catch? For a lot of plays, there are multiple quartos, and they don't always say the same thing.
The other huge source is what's called the First Folio. It was this big, beautiful collection of his plays that his friends and colleagues put together 7 years after he died. But even the versions in the folio can be different from what's in the quartos. It's a real puzzle.
So what this all means is that for some of the most famous plays in the English language, we're talking Hamlet, King Lear, and yes, Romeo and Juliet, there isn't one single original. There are several. And the book you have on your shelf is a version that an editor pieced together from these conflicting sources.
So is there any way for us, the readers, to actually see where these decisions were made? How do we spot the editor's handiwork? Well, this is where the Folger Shakespeare editions come in with a really elegant solution. See, instead of trying to smooth everything over and hide their work, the Folger editors do the exact opposite. They make the whole process completely transparent. They actually show you their work, right there on the page.
Look really closely at this line from Othello. See the word bound and see those little square brackets around it? That is not a typo. That's a clue. It's a signal from the editor to you.
It's all part of this simple but brilliant system. Square brackets tell you a word was added from a different early version. Those little half brackets show you where a word has been changed or modernized. And the angle brackets are for things like stage directions that might not have been in the original. It's like a secret code that lets you read the play's entire history.
And once you know this, it's not just a cool piece of trivia. It totally changes the way you read. The play stops being a fixed, ancient monument and starts feeling like a living, breathing conversation that's been going on for centuries.
All of a sudden, you're not just a passive reader anymore. You're an active participant. You get to see the choices, you can question them, and you can understand that you're part of this long, amazing history of how these plays have been read and understood over time.
As Michael Whitmore, the director of the Folger Library, says, it's all about finding ourselves in this old language, because it forces us to see it as something fresh and new. It's an invitation to really make these incredible works your own.
So, the next time you open a classic play, just pause for a second and remember, you're not just hearing one voice. You're hearing a chorus. The voice of the playwright, sure, but also the printers, the actors, the scholars, and all the editors along the way. And that complex history is hidden right there, behind every single word.